If you've been paying attention to GOA's social media recently, you probably saw the video where our Director of Women's Outreach, Antonia Okafor, was attacked by Democrat congressman, yeah, that guy, about why she wanted to defund and abolish the ATF.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ms. Okafor, I have a social media post from your Facebook, Instagram account. The image says you posted it on June 16th, 2020. Here we have the seal of the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosions. And next to it, you said, quote, "We said what we said. Hashtag GOA, Gun Owners of America. Hashtag abolish the ATF." That's what your post says, correct?
Correct.
Then underneath this ATF seal, your post says, in big letters, defund, correct?
Correct.
Defund the ATF. So just to be clear, you say defund the ATF and then abolish the ATF. On July 4th in Highland Park, Illinois, just very close to my district in the Chicago suburbs, the shooter shot and killed 7 and injured 30 with an AR-style rifle, AR-15 style rifle. The shooter fled the scene, but despite this, he was identified and caught because ATF agents were able to quickly trace a weapon he left at the scene back to him using the ATF's National Tracing Center. Yet, ma'am, you want to abolish this agency. You want to abolish this National Tracing Center. That is an extreme and radical viewpoint. Unfortunately, some folks on the other side have introduced the extremist bill, quote, eliminate the ATF Act. I respectfully submit we should help keep our law enforcement intact. We should help keep our communities safe, and we should be investing in the ATF and law enforcement, not defunding and abolishing it, as you would suggest, ma'am.
A little behind the scenes fun for you guys. We knew the congressman was going to bring up a social media post from Antonia. That's what we heard. So when he finally got around to asking his question, he just asked Antonia to confirm what GOA has been saying all along, for decades. Get rid of the ATF. I don't think Antonia could have said it any better. The agency is unconstitutional, and it's used as a bureaucratic loophole to infringe on your rights. What's sad is that a lot of these industry representatives at the hearing were tripping all over themselves to kiss up to the ATF. And too often, having that no compromise mindset is important, but ultimately meaningless without courage. And here at GOA, that's what we're about. We're about courage and a no compromise mindset. But back to obliterating the ATF. Some of you might be wondering why we haven't endorsed or promoted many bills calling for the abolishment or defunding of the ATF, and I'm here to explain why. Abolishing the agency responsible for enforcing infringements on the Second Amendment is the end goal for us at GOA. But there are a lot of dominoes that have to fall before we can make that happen without severe consequences for gun owners. And for those of you who comment in the comment sections of our videos, I actually bring this up quite a bit, and I'm going to set the record straight here. First off, outright abolishing the ATF right now would not stop, at least in the immediate, unconstitutional infringements on your rights. These laws are still on the books, and they need to be enforced by someone. And without explicitly abolishing the duties of the ATF before we abolish the agency, these responsibilities would just fall to another agency. These tasks will be spread out among government agencies and make it harder for GOA and all of you to hold them all accountable. Plus, most legislation to abolish the ATF does nothing about the hundreds of millions of records on guns and gun owners utilized by them. And so without clear legislative language, gun records could be given to even more dangerous people than just the ATF. Imagine what would happen if the NFA paperwork was in the hands of the FBI. The gun registry, which we've discussed in the series we've linked in the description, might go to the hands of the military, or 4473s could go to Homeland Security. You can see why giving these responsibilities to other agencies might present a risk for gun owners, possibly being even more dangerous than the ATF itself, if you can believe it. Filing a Freedom of Information Act against the FBI would mean millions more records because of how broad their jurisdictions are. Additionally, it will be harder for us to oppose anti-gun directors for these agencies because their responsibilities are so wide. And so moderates will be happy to overlook the anti-gun policies for other parts of their careers that they like. And so it would be a lot harder from now on to just withhold funding specifically from the ATF. Instead, it would go to this giant, massive bureaucracy of all the government agencies responsible for enforcing the laws, and spending could be used any way they want. And so that's why GOA's action plan involves the following: eliminating the NFA and all firearm registration associated with it, eliminating the ATF's unconstitutional gun and gun owner database, getting rid of the Gun Control Act's unconstitutional regulations, overturning all previously instituted unconstitutional rules, like Biden's latest actions on framer receivers and stabilizing braces. Also, eliminating the federal government's role in unconstitutionally regulating the firearms industry. You shouldn't fall under the false assumption that fixing our gun laws is as easy as passing one law or eliminating one federal agency. Gun control is woven into the fabric of our law enforcement, and we need to remove it with a scalpel. Removing unconstitutional laws, destroying the illegal registries, and preventing any government agency from using bureaucratic rulemaking to regulate your Second Amendment rights is a necessary and important step to ensuring our constitutional rights are protected into the future. Only when all this is done and every anti-gun statute has been repealed so that no government bureaucrat is able to interfere with your natural right to self-preservation does the fun really begin. Now we can start abolishing the ATF. Turn all the vacated ATF buildings around the country into gun stores or kennels, in honor of the ATF's history with man's best friend. From day one, GOA's believed that the ATF is an unconstitutional agency that exists only to restrict your rights. But abolishing the ATF without first doing our due diligence would be nothing more than a symbolic gesture that would hurt the gun rights movement in the long term. The anti-gunners won't just stop pushing for gun control if the ATF magically disappears. Instead, we need to strip the federal government of all of its so-called authority to regulate our constitutionally protected rights. And only then can we abolish the ATF, and maybe they can leave DC and make this town a whole lot better. All right, that's it for this week. I'm Phil. This has been the Minuteman Moment. Please like and subscribe and comment below and let me know what you think about our plan to abolish the ATF.